We are back with more NBA playoff coverage, and in this one, I will be covering all the Game 5 action in the conference semifinals round. So, to get things started with the Pacers and Cavs, a bit of good grace for them would be the fact that Donovan Mitchell would actually play in this ball game. You know, his status was definitely in limbo after the ankle injury that he was dealing with after the halftime period of last ball game, and it literally came down to a game time decision. But they did say that he was eligible to play, and from the opening tip, he got burned. But it was going to be important for the Cavs, nevertheless, to make sure that they impose their will early and often. And just tell you right now, if they were even so much is giving up just a glimpse of what the hell happened in that second quarter, especially of game 4, to go down by 41 points at halftime and give up 80 in the first half. You could not afford to have the Pacers start off that hot if you wanted to keep your season alive. Because, as you saw from the last game, they had no chance of coming back in that one. It was done before things even really kicked off. So what did the Cavs end up doing to start things out? They would go back and forth with the Pacers for a little while, but then towards the tail end of the first quarter, you would get Donovan Mitchell doing what he has virtually all series long. Though there were a few things that happened that made me really think about his overall status. I mean, obviously, you know, you're trying to keep Mitchell in because you want to try and protect this thing. Keep this going for as long as you can. But at the same time, man, there was something about him early on that just really kind of got to me. Because there was a sequence where he was driving to the basket and he gets a chance to convert an open running dunk, driving dunk to the rim. And he doesn't get up high enough. He's stopped by basically the outer layer of the rim. And in just a sheer display of frustration, just smacks the ground. Stuff like that just really sucks to see because, again, Mitchell, has been putting it pretty much all on the line this series. Like, yes, obviously, people will look at the box score and acknowledge that he's averaged that many points, rebounds, assists per game, and stuff like that. But even when you've seen how these have played out, the amount of physicality and the kind of toll that his body has taken to this point, even, that kind of really puts that on a showcase. And it's just hard to see. But that grind wouldn't stop because he just continued to try and grind it out. And other players would start to get involved for the Cavs team. Evan Mobley would return and have a pretty solid outing overall. And they were able to keep the Pacers' offense relatively ineffective for a while there. They would get a 31-point quarter and then head into the second, where they continued to just ramp up the pressure and just showcase that, hey, even if they do potentially lose this game, they're not going to do so without a fight whatsoever. Obi Toppin would get a little bit of scoring involved for himself, but ultimately the Cavs, with DeAndre Hunter getting a shot, or I don't even think this is the one, but yeah, DeAndre Hunter was definitely motivated by the fact that Benedict Mathurin did all of what he did. So he ended up getting a couple buckets on him throughout this game, funnily enough. just like I knew that is exactly that was what he was going to be looking for at that point. Evan Mobley's pair of free throws here would bring the lead up to 19. And then apparently the most overrated player in the league decided that he wanted to go nuclear for a quarter because the entire Pacers offense would come back around. They couldn't miss a damn thing on what would be a 27-12 run in which they got within 4 by just the end of the half. Not to mention, this was all led by a man in Tyrese Haliburton, who in this quarter alone had 15 points and 5 3-pointers in a single quarter, which in NBA history, that is the most all-time in any single playoff quarter. Like, he's literally been doing this for a good portion of the postseason. He's had some terrible games, don't get me wrong, but you're seeing stuff like this, and people out there still have the nerve to claim that this guy is not properly rated or not worthy of respect. Like, it's just weird stuff. That was the last thing that the Cavs needed, though. Like, you couldn't give up any momentum. As I noted, it was about firm control of the game. You could not afford to let them go on a long run like that. And it's safe to say that while the early third quarter would see them understand this a little bit, with Evan Mobley pushing the lead back up to 9 on a 3-pointer, the Pacers just clamped their asses down on defense. Even if you don't consider them necessarily elite, easy looks for Jared Allen weren't going in. The Cavs also could not get the 3-ball going. I mean, to this point still, while Donovan Mitchell was playing fine, he was shooting very inefficient from the field, and he had yet to make a 3-pointer. Same thing with Darius Garland. He was not having a good outing himself, also struggling to make a 3-pointer as well. Max Strus, who had been one of the better players for them in this series, had not logged a single point yet or a made field goal. So that combination of those things paired in with the fact that so many players on the Pacers, whether it was Pascal Siakam, whether it was Thomas Bryant even coming in for a little bit and just showcasing some offensive shot-making ability, they were able to go on a commanding run and ultimately take the lead in the game. Mind you as well that it would take a Ty Jerome step-back 3-pointer to get the Cavs back into this after not scoring a field goal for the 7 minutes and 17 seconds prior to that. Like, you're trying to keep your season alive, and you have that kind of drought in that particular moment of the ballgame. It's not optimal whatsoever. Now, Ty Jerome, I guess those pairs of shots would keep them just within distance, I suppose. And then eventually, the Cavs would also, despite not taking the lead on this, they would get a nice sequence in the fourth quarter down 87-84 with DeAndre Hunter getting a 3-pointer with a potential and one opportunity. Now, he didn't make the free throw, but Darius Garland eventually got the ball back in his hands on an offensive rebound attempt, and he would get an easy lay into the rim that forced the timeout, getting the Cavs back within 1. Still, in so many ways, Tyrese Haliburton affects the game. And this is what people don't seem to understand. I guess those people who do firmly stand on the notion that he is just not that good. Like, he impacts the game in a numerous and abundant amount of ways. It's not just the scoring threat or the ability to shoot the 3-ball. Like, he is legitimately a floor general of that offense. And it just opens up different opportunities for so many people on the court at one time. That's how this works. Like, it's just a deadly combination that when it is in the right player's hands, you can always bank on the fact that they're going to make a smart decision or be certain to make a really good play out of seemingly nothing, no matter what the defense is and no matter who's on them. That's the kind of player that Tyrese Haliburton is. But again, I guess people just don't want to accept that for some reason. Now, although the Pacers would have themselves a 4-point lead here, wasn't without a little bit of pushback down the stretch, but most of this was anchored by Donovan Mitchell. Literally, these last 6 minutes and 53 seconds, we're talking about multiple looks for Donovan Mitchell just getting as many shots as he can up in order to not let this game get out of reach for the Cavs again. He would get his first 3-pointer, and then after an Aaron Nesmith bucket, he would get another very, very good one to bring the game within a single point once more. Nembhard and Haliburton would get great plays back-to-back, with Nembhard securing a layup, Haliburton then blocking Ty Jerome, and then being guarded by him, gets an and one on him easily. And that turns things up for the Pacers just a little bit, but even when it looks like it's over, Donovan Mitchell with a rainbow shot, just right over Tyrese Haliburton, ironically enough, to get the game back down to 6. And he would try it again, bringing the game down to 3. Nembhard would get an and one, a very clutch and one indeed. And you would have Tyrese Haliburton join in as well. Now, the thing is, Donovan Mitchell again, like, there was a sequence here where, like, he's doing all that he can. And yet again, him and by and large the team, it just felt like there were too many sequences where they would get a couple of things to go right for them. But even afterwards, there was always just that one extra thing that did not end up working out in their favor. Like, for Donovan Mitchell to get that initial shot and then miss 3 straight free throws after doing the right thing by drawing the shooting foul from range. Just stuff like that. And then later on, as we get into it, again, Max Strus would remain scoreless. He still wouldn't be able to get on the board here. Donovan Mitchell had to force up another try, and it just didn't go in. It was just about as rough as it possibly could have been. But the Pacers, again, after being down by 19, they would once again, with a 114-105 victory, clinch the series, and they were the first team to book their spot in the Eastern Conference Finals, Conference Finals round, generally speaking. This team now owns two of the largest comebacks to clinch a playoff series in NBA history. And this is all in the same postseason. But again, people want to consistently talk about them being a fluky team and just getting lucky. Like, you can say that all you want to, but they still had to go through this full season with Tyrese Haliburton's ups and downs to start out the year. And again, as mentioned too, they have been 42-17 since January 1st, as multiple people have stated. And even as I've stated in previous videos when I was breaking down just general regular season action. Now, I might not have necessarily been hip to the exact record, but I could tell you that they were surging at the right time. They got that. They get the matchup against the Bucks, take them down in comeback fashion, and then they become giant slayers here against the Cavs, a top team in the league, on the Eastern Conference at least, and take them down in 5. With them being mostly healthy. I mean, like, seriously. They, as other people have stated as well, this isn't necessarily new. In past games that I've covered through the regular season, the Pacers have stuck it to the Cavs on multiple occasions. Like, you may be shocked that they won the series, but y'all acting like they weren't even going to get so much as a game against them. Like, okay. That's on you for continuously sleeping on the team. And again, like that. So, whatever you got to say is what it is. But what you can't deny is that somehow, some way, they're right back here. And at that point, how are you going to truly just not give them their credit whatsoever? Because none of those sentiments are truly going to explain that. The team is legitimate. Pascal Siakam would have 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists on 8 of 20 shooting. Andrew Nembhard would have 18 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds on 7 of 11 shooting with 3 threes. Tyrese Haliburton had 31 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists on 10 of 15 shooting with 6 threes. Aaron Nesmith had a 13-point and 13-rebound double-double. Miles Turner had 10 and 7. Thomas Bryant had 9. Benedict Mathurin had 4. And Obi Toppin had 5. As for the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell, in a great series from him, he would finish with 35 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 steals here. 8 of 25 shooting is definitely a ton. Definitely. But, even with that inefficiency from the field, he did as best as he could to make that up at the line, continuing to be a bully when driving downhill and drawing proper contact to get extra looks at the stripe. Evan Mobley had 24 points and 11 rebounds on 8 of 12 shooting with a 3. DeAndre Hunter had 12 points off the bench. Darius Garland struggled mightily as well. 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 turnovers, and 4 fouls. Shot 4 of 16 from the field, did not hit a single three-pointer. And then you get to Max Strus, who did not log a single point, as I mentioned, missing all 9 shots, including all 6 of his threes. Team as a whole shot 38.9% from the field and 25.7% from deep. And again, when you compare that to the Pacers, as close as this game was, for them to shoot 50% from the field and 42.9% from deep, in a game that was this close, you could not afford to lose that battle that drastically. And yet that's exactly what ended up happening. Cavs did almost everything they could. Literally, when you look at the offensive rebounds here, they're at 15-5. You were getting extra possessions, but you were not converting on them as much as you needed to. And with that, they lost the series. Now, it's going to be really interesting for the Cavs, but, to just, state here again, you can't necessarily knock Donovan Mitchell for this. Bro. That man has done nothing but perform in the postseason. And to have an injury like that, to try to work your way back into the lineup, and then put that kind of performance on display when your team needed it the most, that's truly respect. It's just always something with the Cavs, and it is always something with Donovan Mitchell-led teams. And that's been a problem in, some NBA discourses surrounding this situation. You want a player like Donovan Mitchell to truly reach the NBA Finals. But the reality is that with all the teams that he's been on, he hasn't even made a conference finals appearance yet. And the Cavs as well, for all of that regular season success, they still have yet to show that they are a team that can go on a legitimately deep playoff run. So I don't necessarily know what the offseason holds for them. You're going to try to keep around as many people as you can. Although, as stated earlier, with Evan Mobley getting that raise in his contract, the Ty Jerome would be a little less likely to stick around given all of the logistics of that potential contract. And honestly, a few weeks back, it probably would have been something to, question why Ty Jerome was being looked at in that kind of way. Because he was truly generating just great contributions for this Cavs team and what they needed at the time. But given how he played in this series, I don't necessarily think that they would be as worried about losing him if it had to go down that way. Because I just gotta check this out. So hold up. Because again, his series overall, it just was not good. There's no way for me to say it. That can't. Hold up. You just can't sugarcoat that. We're talking about a person who had been getting an increase in looks, but 8 points per game, for Ty Jerome and 2.6 assists per game, just 30% shooting, 25% from three. Like, you would just expect so much more in a situation like that from a person who was getting votes as the sixth man of the year. I mean, even with Max Strus's stinker donut of a last game, he had a very great series in comparison to Ty Jerome. But even he might also be someone that they might have to look into moving on from. There are going to be a lot of questions, of course. You're going to want to run it back for the most part. But it's like, maybe they would question getting just some sort of quality piece in hopes to take that next step that they are likely going to have to take in order to be recognized as a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. Because with the way things went, there's almost no shot that they would be recognized as legitimate right now. They're still going to get clowned on. I'm sure it's happening even to this point. So, man. But as for the Pacers, they are exactly where they want to be. And they'll end up facing either Boston or New York. They're just simply playing the waiting game for now. Moving on to the Nuggets and Thunder, and there was still a little bit of sloppy play lingering over from the first quarter as the Nuggets would go down 12-2 instantly. And then they decided to wake things up just a little bit as the teams would continue to trade punches. Where it was a strictly defensive-minded first quarter for both teams in Game 4, that was very much the opposite when it came to the start of this Game 5. Both teams were just catching each defense out of rhythm completely, and that led to multiple just seemingly flawless sets being executed by both offenses here, to where it ultimately came down to the Thunder losing the quarter by just a single point and teams combining for 55 total in this stretch. The Nuggets would also see themselves after that go on what would be an overall 38-23 run. Now, that didn't come without a few struggles. I mean, they still could not hit a lot of their three-pointers in strictly the first quarter. At a certain point, they were like missing their last 20 attempts or something from deep in just the first quarter of this series. But eventually that would even start to be engineered well for them, as Nikola Jokic also. And again, that's definitely something that would catch the Thunder off guard. Jokic was just dishing out so much in this damn game. As much as he possibly could. And it seemed to shake up the Thunder defense a little bit. He wasn't playing as scared or as passive as he might have been because of the pressure that was being given to him by this Thunder defense. And again, that made everything a lot easier for the Nuggets offense in general, as he would even hit a three at this spot. Now, you would have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander have a few responses as well, as he would also be on pace for what would become a truly good output for him as well. Despite everybody continuing to say that he hasn't necessarily had that breakout game in the postseason. And honestly, maybe he simply has not had to just yet. But again, reinforcing the argument of how this overall MVP debate might shape up. Because people will look at that and see that, hey, even if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might be the best player on the best team, there is still a world in which the Nuggets could potentially go down to a Thunder team without having SGA be on a complete tear. It was a very competitive first half indeed, and the Thunder would be down by 2 to the Nuggets here. As you get into the third quarter, Jamal Murray truly got things going here. He was having his struggles a little bit, but, having Nikola Jokic pull off this efficient streak motivated Jamal Murray a little bit to try and help. He would go off for 13 third quarter points in this one, getting all of the acrobatic layups at the rim and just hitting some beautiful mid-range shots. There was one where he had Lucius Dort completely frozen and still managed to cash it in late. Yeah, I think this is the exact one fading away as they go up the Nuggets by 9. Even Nikola Jokic would get a steal on the ensuing possession. And then ultimately, through playing very good defense, the Nuggets, after an Aaron Gordon three-pointer, would be able to push it back up to 12. But not to, diminish the Thunder at all. It would be their turn to respond as Gilgeous-Alexander and the squad would come back firing. There's always been something about Alex Caruso in this series. It just feels like anytime it's getting late in a quarter, obviously he'd be on the court more towards those points. But it seems like every time he just provides some spark that changes the course of the game. And that would happen here, as all it took was for him to get just one and then get effective in transition for the Thunder to finally reassert themselves, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would immediately get 2 points of his own. Russell Westbrook also got a little lucky here by just tipping it in at the last second, because he as well made it very hard for people who consider themselves to be Westbrook fans stay in that territory. He just was not good. There were multiple open looks he had from the corner. Obviously, you're going to leave him open because you will dare him to shoot. They did exactly that, and he airballed repeatedly, which is just gut-wrenching, especially for Nuggets fans who saw how close this game was. Just hitting at least one or two of them could have changed this thing completely. Flipped it upside its head, but no. I'd even have Russell Westbrook at that point, if he's not going to make it, just drive in from the baseline. You have to get a more efficient look than that, even if it's not necessarily optimal to pass up an open three-pointer in today's climate. Just do it, because you know good and damn well Like, you are not that consistent from out there. It just wasn't even worth it. The Nuggets would enter the fourth quarter, and yes, the Thunder would certainly take it over. I can't deny. I mean, their defense truly tightened up when it was time. The Nuggets offense could not get a lick of anything going with how they were swarming to the basketball. I mean, seriously. And then when it got into clutch time, every time the Nuggets seemed to have a response, the Thunder would be right back at it as well. I mean, this last 4 minutes or so just saw back and forth buckets from both teams. Now, most of it was anchored by Nikola Jokic. I mean, he would get multiple layups at this time, and he would get an offensive rebound for a putback. Then, with 1:40 left, shot clock winding down, this man, Nikola Jokic, takes Chet Holmgren at the fucking top of the key. He's very well guarded. So this man taps into the damn soundboard shuffle, taking a step behind the three-point line, of course, fading back, and he splashed the fucking three straight in Chet Holmgren's face. Now, he's done that shot before, and every single time, it's just crazy to watch unfold. Obviously, he's done this to the Lakers multiple times over just the last 3 seasons. So AD's definitely got some PTSD about that. But now to pull that out here, when they absolutely had to have it, and it demoralized the hell out of the OKC fans there. And those guys were representing too, by the way. From opening tip, I mean, they had half white out, half blue shirts. It was a spectacle to see, for sure. But they couldn't necessarily let their fans go like that. And honestly, that would not stand. Because Jalen Williams, Santa Clara Jalen Williams, just a few seconds later, would find himself open in the corner for what would be the shot to give the Thunder the lead. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would get another open look and get his first 3 of the night to bring them up to 6, effectively closing the game out there. So while Nikola Jokic did have a few moments there, the Nuggets ultimately lost as a collective, obviously. But when you look into the numbers here, they mentioned that they were 4 of 20 shooting from the field in the fourth quarter in this ball game. And that over the last 2 ball games, as a team, they have a point differential of negative 28 in the fourth quarter. Like, we talk about the Nuggets' experience, and that's fair. That's a given, obviously. But to have multiple losses of that kind of magnitude consecutively should pose a little cause for concern. Even then, though, still might not be too much. This has still been a competitive series through and through. And I mean, hey, Nikola Jokic got back on the right track. Now, obviously, just 5 assists for a person who has averaged a triple-double this season seems low. But when they needed him to score, he did just that. He got 44 points and also grabbed 15 rebounds. Also shooting 68% from the field with 71% shooting from deep and perfect shooting at the line. You couldn't ask for a much better game from Jokic, and it still wasn't enough. Why? Well, Jamal Murray and Christian Braun, for example, combined for just 13 of 39 shooting, including 5 of 21 shooting from deep for 36 points total, with Murray accounting for 28. Down the stretch, Aaron Gordon also did not necessarily do a ton. even with him finishing with 13 points and 3 assists with 5 rebounds. As for the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would have 31 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists with 2 steals and blocks on a total of 23 shooting. Jalen Williams, Santa Clara, would have 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. Alex Caruso had 13 on 4 of 10 shooting with 3 threes. Chet Holmgren had 14 points and 8 rebounds. And Isaiah Hartenstein had 15 points and 7 rebounds on 7 of 10 shooting. So another just tough loss. Rather self-inflicted, though, when you look at how the Nuggets played this. I mean, I think they mentioned that, well, again, Westbrook wasn't necessarily playing the best as well. And then Michael Porter Jr., of course, just continuing to be absent in situations like these. They could have really used his spacing in the game, but he only provided them with 2 points and just chucked up inefficient shot after inefficient shot. But something tells me that as they go on to face them tonight, they gotta and they're gonna have to get something else from Michael Porter Jr. in this one. I can feel it. And they're gonna have to have it. If not him, just anybody. Because now your season's on the line. And you're heading back to Denver. So just collectively, you gotta figure it out if you're them. Moving on to the Knicks and the Celtics, and obviously no Jayson Tatum. So that would certainly put the Boston squad at a disadvantage, of course, but there's still a deep roster. You still have Jaylen Brown there. So naturally, for your fan base, you're trying to at least prolong this thing as much as you possibly can. You know, there's no telling of whether or not they'll truly be able to win the series without Jayson Tatum. But at the very least, for one more time, you just want to hold on. And it's safe to say that the Celtics understood that. Because Derrick White would start out the game going absolutely nuclear. Like in just the first few minutes of the ball game, this man had 14 points on perfect shooting from deep. The Knicks were trying to throw everything at this Boston offense. And yet somehow, someway, they let Derrick White get open time and time again. Just pulling up, getting open shots in the corner. And the team as a whole, Jaylen Brown started to get his. And Luke Kornet also would have a really weird fucking game. Not only was this man perfect from the field, simply just being a lob threat somehow, but he was also just a defensive force. He would eventually end the game with 7 fucking blocks. He had multiple blocks on like Karl Anthony Towns. I did not expect that shit from him at all. No one saw that coming whatsoever. But that kind of spirit to have every single player on this team in the most unexpected way imaginable step up. Even Al Horford was getting up for fucking dunks and shit. The Knicks were in it. They were winning for quite a while. I mean, Miles McBride, even with Derrick White doing what he was doing, Miles McBride had a few shots in there that were just absurd to watch. Josh Hart would also space the floor relatively well during this stretch of time too. And of course, Jalen Brunson continued to be a threat. They tried to cover him in multiple ways. And in one such sequence, they had Jalen Brunson being guarded by Peyton Pritchard in the post on this possession late in the second quarter. He absolutely worked them. And Al Horford tried to get in there to help on some crazy shit. He drew the shooting foul and won. got that, so that extended the Knicks' lead a little bit, but Jaylen Brown would end up tying up the ball game, and for all intents and purposes, the Celtics were truly right where they wanted to be at this point. Even with the franchise player down, depending on who you ask, you still have a full team around them that should be doing their best to step up. Especially with the fact that they were able to make a championship just last season. That kind of mentality should not just dissipate with the absence of one player. And the Celtics would keep that going. Now, granted, Josh Hart was just soldiering through the entire game. Not only was he continuing this, but he was also doing so while getting banged the hell up. I mean, there was a sequence where Kornet, accidentally elbowed him, and he got a vicious cut in his eye that bloodied him completely. He had to get a Band-Aid on that. But he ended up returning, and he just continued to make the Celtics pay for leaving them open on these three-point shots. At least for a while. After the game was 68-67, though, the Celtics would just turn things up. From here on out, it was just straight up, belt the ass and suffocating defense as Derrick White continued to shoot the tray ball and make the tray ball. Peyton Pritchard, after struggling for a little while, got the shot to fall as well. Luke Kornet continued to man the paint. I can't believe I'm making that statement, by the way. That is utterly ridiculous to do in this year. There's no way. Sam Hauser was getting shots to go. Everybody. I mean, it got to a point where even down the stretch in the fourth quarter, you have Al Horford getting in here making some. Drew Holiday, after having his own struggles throughout the series, decided that he wanted to get some buckets in. And then they put in the fucking bench players. J.D. Davison, former G League MVP, comes in and hits a crazy fucking three-point shot near the end of the buzzer beater. Nehemias Queta comes in and gets a few dunks of his own. And ultimately, the Celtics would win 127-102. Now, I don't think the Knicks should really be that concerned because, one, they aren't probably going to try to win this in Madison Square Garden. These teams are sworn rivals. Why the fuck would they want to... they could do it, but it just wouldn't feel the same as winning this and clinching a conference finals berth, at home, in New York, in the Garden. The Garden. Right? Come on, man, what are we doing? And then, secondly, bro, I'll just get to the Celtics numbers, bro. Let's start out with this nigga, because for Luke Kornet to come off the bench and give them 10 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 blocks on perfect shooting, I can stamp this right now, and that shit is not happening again. It's not. You're not going to see that happen. And granted, the only reason that Kornet was able to come in was mostly because Porzingis was taken out. Mazzulla stated that he had difficulty breathing, still stemming from this prolonged illness that he has had for quite some time. That is scary. Again, he's had this for months, and it's just lingering in there like that. That's horrible. That's got to be a horrible thing to go through. You can respect Kornet for stepping up in that way, but he's not repeating that again. I'm telling you right now. Jaylen Brown had 26 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds with just 2 turnovers and shot 9 of 17 from the field with 3 threes of his own. This man, Derrick White, though, 34 points and 3 blocks in 40 minutes on 9 of 16 shooting with 7 threes. Peyton Pritchard had 17 points and 5 threes as well off the bench. Drew Holiday had 14 points on 5 of 8 shooting with 2 threes as well, along with 7 boards and 3 assists. Al Horford had 12 points. Hauser had 6. And Davison had 3. As for the Knicks, it's a tricky thing when it comes to their wing players, man, because for Josh Hart, of all people, to go off for 24 points, shooting 7 of 15 from the field with 5 threes of his own, and then also 7 rebounds. That's a great Josh Hart game that shouldn't be wasted. But I look at Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Meanwhile, throughout this whole time, both of them were just liabilities out there. All over. They did not have great games in this one. Even just watching. Like, sure, I can have this box score here and see that in 76 combined minutes, they put up 15 combined points on an atrocious combined 5 of 26 shooting. But I'm not going to look at that. Their play spoke volumes to just how god awful they were out there. There's no better way to say it. They need you to rise to the occasion and help them close this thing out. And you have underwhelming performances like that. You keep getting caught out of position on defense. You're not providing enough all-around effort. Like, even if you do desire to win it at home, you still have to put it all on the line. You can't just up and quit. Jalen Brunson had 22 points and 6 assists on 7 of 17 shooting with 1 3-pointer. Also a rough game for him. Especially when you notice that, as I heard about earlier, actually, he had 5 fouls in just the third quarter alone, and then fouled out of the game in the fourth. Just a yikes indeed. Karl Anthony Towns had 19 points, 8 rebounds, and a steal on 5 of 11 shooting. Again, similar thing. They could have used a lot more of Karl Anthony Towns in this one for sure. I would like to see him get more aggressive, but at the same time, I suppose he was really scared of Luke Kornet. Can't believe I'm saying it. I just can't believe I'm saying that. It is fucking crazy. It's like, dude, what the hell? This is quite the story to look at here, I guess, man. We really do live in a society, I guess. Miles McBride had 11 points and 3 assists on 3 of 8 shooting with 3 threes. But hey, at least Pacum Didier came in and scored 2 points in garbage time. So I guess there's some solace to be found in that. I don't know. Alright. And then, for the Warriors and the Timberwolves. Oh, man. Oh, boy. They were in it. They were truly in it. Like, you have to give credit to guys like Brandon Podziemski and Kuminga. Throughout the entire game, they did as best as they could to give this team the spark that they needed. But sparks are not enough in a situation like this. Because most importantly, when it comes to the defensive side of the basketball, bruh, the mistakes just kept on piling up repeatedly. Whether it was allowing multiple open shots to Anthony Edwards over the course of the game. And again, I literally mean that. He did not have the craziest total of points. But he played with a sense of patience that allowed other members of the Timberwolves to get things going. His points were very sparse, but they were very timely. I kid you not. And he shot so efficiently from the field. Again, with a good portion of them being open looks. Because multiple players just finding themselves out of position at one time. And then when you get at other players, Gobert had multiple easy dunks in the paint on breakdowns. That just cannot happen in an elimination game. DiVincenzo got some open looks. Naz Reid, not so much, but Jaden McDaniels feasted on the defense. Julius Randle kept getting the switches against smaller players like Buddy Hield and feasted. And even then, when he was being guarded by Trayce Jackson-Davis and Jimmy Butler the third, Draymond Green, even they couldn't really guard him at that point. You have to give him some credit there because usually in those situations he would struggle, but he legitimately got the job done for this Timberwolves team. And it's certainly a far cry from how things were going in the very first portion of the season with the lack of chemistry and all the reports of chaos in that locker room. We are far from that now, and he's definitely asserted himself as a core piece in that Timberwolves unit. Michael Conley Jr. also, shout out to the Ohio State man for making multiple Ohio State plays in this game. Got multiple great looks from three and just cashed out. He even got something where the shot clock was winding down and at the buzzer he hits one. For a person that is usually out there to just man the facilitating duties for the offense, when they needed him to play off the ball and be a threat from deep, he was more than willing to do so. And there were a few possessions of his where he even got some good defense played. Again, you're not necessarily expecting that from a point guard at his size, who is 37 years old, I believe. Like, he's pretty old now. So, to have him continue to give that effort on that side is pretty great to see if you are a Timberwolves fan. No question about it. Oh, man. Literally, despite a 10-point third quarter from Podziemski and just great aggressiveness, albeit from Jonathan Kuminga, even late when the game was out of reach because of just the flurry of shots that they were making. They were way too efficient in this game, the Timberwolves. And a good amount of them were tough shots, but a lot of them were also very, very guardable, and you just weren't seeing players put their hands up to alter the shot trajectory. As I mentioned, just being out of position and rotations consistently to where they just settle into a groove, and just like that, it's like clockwork for them. They would get it close as well, getting the game down to as much as 9 points, but even then, they would allow an Anthony Edwards 3, and then Jimmy Butler III just loses track of the ball and allows an easy layup to McDaniels to get it back up to 14. Just tough. It's just tough. I say all that to say that the Timberwolves would beat the Warriors in 5, with this score being 121 to 110. Julius Randle would have 29, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists on 13 of 18 shooting. Anthony Edwards had 22 points and a career high 12 assists in the playoffs and 7 rebounds with 3 blocks and all on 8 of 15 shooting with 5 threes. Gobert had 17 points and 8 rebounds on 8 of 9 shooting. Now again, it definitely wasn't a dominant fucking 27-24 game. You can live with that, but still, the way he got them is just grueling to watch. Michael Conley Jr. had 16 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds on 5 of 7 shooting with 4 threes. Jaden McDaniels had 14 points and 4 steals with 4 rebounds on 6 of 14 shooting. Dante DiVincenzo had 13 points and 6 assists with 4 steals off the bench on 5 of 7 shooting with 2 threes. As for the Warriors, Jimmy Butler III, I'll get into him in a second. Oh my goodness. Man. Brandon Podziemski, though, he played as well as he could have. Yeah, he had been struggling for a great portion of this series, but to see what was on the verge of happening and to put up a playoff career high, 28 points, with 6 rebounds and 4 assists on 11 of 19 shooting with 4 threes. It was a spectacular performance, and they definitely needed that. It kept them alive, and they had a chance to come back and win. But just too many mistakes were made. Jonathan Kuminga also had 26 points off the bench with 2 steals and 3 rebounds on 11 of 23 shooting with 3 threes. Moses Moody came in and gave 12 points, along with a good bunch of them coming in that flurry that led to the game getting down to just a 9-point lead for the Timberwolves. Draymond had 10 points and 6 rebounds with 6 assists on 4 of 11 shooting as well. Buddy Hield also had 8. Granted, 2 of 9 shooting is not great. But even he, throughout the series, gave his best effort, and that's all you can ask for. Now, to give praise to the Timberwolves, I mean, hey, they're going to be a very formidable opponent for either team that they end up facing in the conference finals. I mean, I personally don't think that the series will be decided tonight, but depending on who they face, if it's the Thunder, I mean, as I have covered in a previous video, there was a stretch of back-to-back games against the Timberwolves and the Thunder that were fucking peak basketball. I think one of those games went to overtime as well, and both of them were relatively close. So if those 2 games specifically are any sort of reference point, well, that series will certainly be a great one. And the same thing with the Nuggets. Now, the Nuggets, in that case, would be looking to avenge last year's 2nd round loss to them. Which, again, just even more intrigue added there. But as for the Warriors, with their season coming to a close, we gotta talk about Jimmy Butler III. Obviously. Again, not to say that he did not play in these games with a lack of effort, but there were plays in each of these games where you could tell that for whatever reason, he just would not commit to giving 100% effort on a play. And then in this game here, like, we need the Jimmy Butler III that rises in the playoffs. And yet, he has just 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. And it's not even like that's necessarily terrible, but the way in which he got them. For starters, I mean, just 11 shots. And again, watching this live, most of those shots were good looks that could have been made. And from just point blank range, they're missed. And then when that happens, don't see a lot of hustle back on the defensive side of the ball. It just is what it is. Apparently, I don't know about that. I gotta question that. Like, yes, in games past, he has had performances with just single-digit field goals. But he'd been damn efficient from the field in those games. And he made it his mission to be as aggressive as possible, drawing as much contact as he could to get to the foul line. He got 11 attempts from the line. So I guess that is what it is. But still, when you needed to be as surefire as possible, it just didn't happen. And I get it. You're not necessarily going to be perfect, but still, just 36% shooting from the field, with most of those shots being bankable. It's a rough one. And again, the way in which he was moving around there, it was just very slow paced. Now, granted, that had been the case since he got here to Golden State via the trade. That's understandable. But even when it felt like it was time to get faster out there, even on that possession that opened the game up to 14 points with McDaniel stealing the basketball, you gotta go way quicker than that. And I guess he just could not hit that second gear. Now, I did see part of an interview in the postgame, and somebody asked him about the potential extent of the back injury suffered in the Rockets series and how that might have played into his presence this series. He didn't make much of it, but at the same time, that's not out of the realm of possibility either. It isn't. There's a good chance that some effects of that were still lingering. I mean, he did return in that game 4, but, you know, it's still something that can, like, very much affect your movement for longer periods of time. So maybe that could explain a few things. But again, simply put, it would be difficult to say that expectations were completely fulfilled. I mean, as I was thinking about when, the game ended, the team as a whole had a very inconsistent season. I mean, you would have thought that they would be title contenders with the way that they started out the season with that 12-3 record. And then they proceed to go through one of the very worst stretches of basketball. One of the most inconsistent stretches of basketball for a team expected to be in playoff contention, let alone championship pursuit. It was just awful from the very get-go. Obviously, Jimmy Butler III did wonders for this team as soon as he got there. There is no denying that. And to even get into the playoffs in the first place, it was greatly aided by having Jimmy Butler III there to give that kind of reinvigorating effect. I'm not going to deny that. From that perspective, it was a success. At the same time, for one reason or another, we don't necessarily know what exactly it could be, but all we as fans generally, and especially for the Warriors fans out there, all we truly know is this: when he needed desperately to step up without Stephen Curry, he simply did not. That is just how it has to be stated. Obviously, again, Curry, and again, this just reinforces the idea of just how impactful he is to the overall franchise. Literally, in every single season, he has had a massive impact on their win shares, in wins above expected. Any metric you can think of when it comes to team success, he boosts it by a large number every time. He is that much influence on the team. That's understandable. But it's like, damn, when you have someone who could take over the mantle in place, again, those expectations of some type of contingency just don't really kick in at that point, I guess. So that's unfortunate. And also, when you look at it, I mean, yes, we understand that playoff Jimmy is obviously a thing. But at the same time, they displayed a graphic that stated that Jimmy Butler III is essentially just a year and some change younger than Stephen Curry is right now, and will be 36 when he enters the next NBA season, along with Draymond being 36, along with Stephen Curry being 37, going on 38 in March of 2026. So there's also the question of this being a potential one-off for Jimmy Butler III, or this being a sign of potential regression. Obviously, again, he'd be on the second year of that contract anyways. So, it's not necessarily a long-term deal, but you're committing a damn large amount of money to him next season. And if you're the Warriors organization or a general fan, you would just hope that this is not something that would be repeated from him consistently. That in situations like this, he can invoke those true displays of playoff Jimmy Butler III. Because naturally, people would be bound to progress in cases like this. You hope that that is not the case. And again, you look at Draymond Green, you look at Jimmy Butler III, you look at Stephen Curry, and you also look at the fact that they have one draft pick in this upcoming draft. I don't know what their potential prospects would be in free agency, but the Warriors are going to have to ask themselves the hard questions. Do they think that this team, as constructed, when healthy also, you have to make sure that they're healthy, are they capable of winning themselves an NBA championship, or at least making a run to an NBA championship? And also, are we going to commit to trying to prolong this championship window for Stephen Curry, or are we going to lean in on the idea of building up our young guys? I mean, this has been a conflict that has been at play for pretty much the last half decade now, with all of the young talent that they have acquired and now moved on from. And then obviously trying to keep some kind of core around Stephen Curry. Because again, you look at the way Kuminga and Podziemski played through this series and finished it for sure. I know they certainly trust Podziemski to remain a player on this team, but do they trust Kuminga enough? Because again, in the games prior to this series, he'd barely been getting playing time. They kept on telling him to stay ready this, stay ready that, and he would never get on the court. But has he done enough in this series to reinvigorate this trust in the team? Does his performance in this series work as a sort of boost in trade value for him if the Warriors front office looks at it in a certain way? Did they need this to happen so that they could potentially engineer some sort of trade? We don't know. But again, you just hope that the Warriors are back and better next season, because they are going to need it. And to have quite the unfortunate segue, I guess, into news from the Celtics organization, as Jayson Tatum would get surgery on what would be officially ruled a torn Achilles tendon. And he is not only going to miss the rest of this season, he would most likely miss, given the fact that these Achilles injuries take around a year or so to at least get back to playing on the court from. Obviously, with something like a torn Achilles, in terms of truly being the same ever again when it comes to playing basketball and just general movements in daily life, there's no guarantee that Tatum may ever get back to a sense of normalcy when it comes to the physical attributes in his game. But that being said, he is likely to miss majority, if not all, of the next season as well. And that truly, truly hurts the Celtics. It just does. Obviously, you want him to be as healthy as possible. That is the priority. But the way the Celtics are thinking about this, how the hell are they going to make this work without him? Because even with him, whether you look up and down this roster at guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, Drew Holiday, etc., etc., the amount of money that they have invested in this roster, it is incredulous to think about that total right there. And if they don't find a way to get below the second apron, they will begin to be getting penalized in the future. They can't afford that. So they've got to figure out who they would really need to move on from. And there are quite a lot of guys that they probably should consider letting go. Because it's just time. Now, if they wanted to make the most out of this roster, they might decide to keep a good number of these players. Also, when it comes to their approach for next season, it's going to be interesting. Because let's say that you do move on from some of these pieces. Like, even as constructed, you're going to be weaker without Tatum. But imagine a lineup without Tatum and a lot of these other essential players who were parts of the championship run last season. I can't see the Celtics intentionally losing ball games to acquire fresh, new talent for their team. But at the same time, this is kind of the spot that they've put themselves in. I don't think they would ever truly be a franchise that would be bad enough to get a lottery pick and a potential impact player early in a draft. But clearly, unless Jaylen Brown takes a massive step as the first option next season, there is nothing that truly suggests right now, to me, that would make them a legitimate contender next season. As things stand. Things can change, obviously. But I don't know. They have got a lot of work to do. Most importantly, though, you hope that Jayson Tatum continues to get better. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.